and we don't practice that muscle. But the only way to get really good at figuring stuff out is to figure stuff out a lot.
Yeah.
And so I always try to put our company in a position where because actually it really stimulates people. People like to be challenged mentally. You think they want it easy, they love challenges. So if you practice that muscle and you put them in positions where it's like you say yes and then figure it out, that was really our COVID story. And every day and every town hall since I say, like, we're not going to make it easy here. We're going to keep
Yeah.
figuring stuff out and saying yes.
Everyone, welcome to the Digital Transformist. I am delighted to have Courtney Wright, CEO of Gemini Builds It, on today. And we have a really fun story about how we reconnected, which is that we were in a Vistas group a long, long time ago that we may talk about. And people kind of all went their separate ways, and then randomly ran into her at a seminar we were doing. And actually, I saw her name on the PowerPoint. I was like, oh my God, is that? I mean, Courtney Wright isn't too unusual a name. And then I was delighted to see that it was you again. And so it was great to see you, and really excited to have you on today. So for people who don't know Gemini Builds It, let's just give a little context, like what is the company? What do you do? What do you guys excel at? All that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on your show. Good to be here. And Gemini Builds It is a U.S. manufacturer located in Chicagoland, 60 people deep. And we work in the art and decor space. And basically what that means is all kind of custom framing and then casework and vitrines for every museum and institution that you may go to or visit, colleges for kids around the country.
That's great. Now it's funny. Now I'm going to ask you a question. My father-in-law worked as an electrician for a really long time, and one of the things he does that is funny and charming, and the kids make fun of him for, is that everywhere we go, he's like, "Oh, I put those lights in. I put those lights in." So when you go to a museum, do you always point out the stuff that you guys did? Like, how do your kids know about what you did?
No, that's not me. I had a long career in a couple different industries, and I'm a pretty visual person, and I would point this all out. Fact is, I'm not that impressed with myself. I think, I don't think they care. They'd be more interested in, what they did. They're still pretty young, and
Yeah.
no, I don't. What I'm impressed about is the people that work here.
Yeah.
More than what we actually produce.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about, so speaking about, we were talking about like we bonded on what happened in COVID, right? So it's been 5 years now.
Yeah.
But I think your story of kind of spotting an opportunity, seeing something and really diving into it and owning a space that honestly, it sounds like maybe you didn't even know existed, prior to that conversation. I think it's a great story. And for, the audience of, CEOs looking for, an edge, I think sometimes the edge is to spot something that maybe is adjacent or right next to what you're doing, and dive into it and make something happen. That's a story I'd love for you to tell here, and see if we can learn something from it.
I'd love to. It's one of my favorite stories because there's in your career, they often say, some years you're lucky and some years you're good. I think you're probably pretty lucky if once or twice in your entire career are you lucky and good on the same year. And that was my COVID story. So everything I just described about what Gemini Builds It does sounds very fancy and expensive, and it is. And in COVID, of course, it was a complete pivot. I always listen to people that are way more successful than me. I like make it a point to read and learn a lot and talk to people that are just way ahead of where I am in my journey. And one guy said to me in February, so if you recall, we shut down March 20th. He just
Yeah.
said, Courtney, are you thinking about COVID enough? And it just was like one of those things that made me think, like, I hope so. I think so. I had been buttoning down the hatches, like trying to save some money at the company and just being, fiscally responsible, but I heard that and I thought about it differently. So I spent a lot of time and I started getting these little Zoom calls I'd put together before Zoom was a thing. And I'd say to all the people on there, I'm like, what are you doing in preparation for COVID? And I heard, wait and see, wait and see, wait and see, wait and see. And I'm like, that's not it. So I got off of those calls and I started calling companies like Whole Foods and Costco and Sam's Club. Now, why? I had seen online, if you remember, COVID started in Italy,
Uh-huh.
China, then Italy. And I saw in Italy in February, there were people eating at restaurants behind acrylic. And I said, wonder what that means. And I was like,
Huh.
they're scared about these germs. Well, we're a very big acrylic fabricator. And something made me start calling grocery stores and saying, "Do you need acrylic?" Thinking between the cashier and the person,
Mm.
there's going to be that same experience I was seeing online in Italy. No, 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 no. And about March 22nd, I got my first bite. Like 2 days after shutdown, it was Costco. And they were like, listen, we need all our registers covered in acrylic with framing, with this. And you can only do the job if you can do it by Sunday. And it was like Friday afternoon or something. And I said, we'll be there. We'd never made a sneeze guard in our
Yeah.
life. And we figured it out and we did it. And really, Mike, that became the first of, we sold over 7 figures in 3 weeks, and I always say, like, you have a business when you've sold over 7 figures,
Mhm.
and it was an absolute rocket ride. We literally, like, would start every conversation with, "What's your credit card number?" Because it was so, just robust, and the people that had material and the wherewithal, they won big time.
Mhm.
So we had both, we had very nimble we all operate out of creativity and speed, that's our make or break. So I just like, okay, we're not making that, we're making that. And we just started buying acrylic like we were gonna make an acrylic house. We were like buying and buying and buying
Mm.
because like that literally it shut down. All the supply channels shut down. So I thought, well, worst case, if we're super long, we're gonna go back someday to making stuff for museums and artists and all of that. But in the meantime, we're gonna go long on this COVID thing. And it turned out to be just a really amazing time for our company
Yeah.
and ever since then.
So if this were a case study like in an HBR article or something, what do you think the lesson is? Because I've experienced people waiting and waiting and waiting, waiting way too long. And then, I mean, it's almost funny, the way you position that, like, we all closed down on the 20th, and the 22nd is when they finally figured out we actually need this. And so I feel like there's a small percentage of people who are always thinking about, like you said, are we thinking about this enough? What's the future? What's the second and third order thing that's going to happen? And then so many people wait. Um, is the lesson as simple as, like, jump in, or like what do you draw from that? Like what would you tell people that could be learned from that moment?
We have our holding company that holds all the assets of these businesses we run and own, is called Perfast Holdings, and it's half the word of perfect and half the word of fast. And I'm the fast part of the equation. My husband's the perfect part. He does the accounting and finance, and that's got to be, very ticked and tied. But
Yeah.
I really think, Mike, that so many of us, they wait to answer a customer till their writing is perfect. They wait to put in the order till everything's perfect. They wait to call on someone till they think they know who the Mike
Right.
LaVista is, and then and they wait so long, they always miss the shot. And like my entire life is about I'm in the 11-foot pool before I even realize that I'm drowning. Like I never
Right.
wait because I think we're so capable of figuring stuff out and we don't practice that muscle. But the only way to get really good at figuring stuff out is to figure stuff out a lot.
Yeah.
And so I always try to put our company in a position where we're because actually it really stimulates people. People like to be challenged mentally. You think they want it easy, they love challenges. So if you practice that muscle and you put them in positions where it's like you say yes and then figure it out, that was really our COVID story. And every day and every town hall since I say like, we're not going to make it easy here. We're going to keep
Yeah.
figuring stuff out and saying yes.
So you said something there that I do want to put on a t-shirt, that like the way to figure things out is to figure things out and like kind of get used to that muscle, right? And I think that when I look at companies that are in growth mode, you have to both do that and have a culture of that. And you kind of mentioned earlier, you're most impressed by and proud of the people that you have. And so I wonder, what do you think? Because when that March 22nd moment hit, you had to, I think you said, like, we need this by Sunday or something. You had to have a team kind of locked and loaded. And the few people I've met from your company, like, there's a kind of a special energy and kind of bounce in their step. Like, what do you think you're doing right with people that sets them up for that figure outable moment?
I think I'm a pretty good cheerleader. I'm a big when people do stuff right, I really cheerlead. I'm not gold star girl every day, but I think that I do recognize extraordinary things and extraordinary thinking and attitude, right? So in COVID that day when they said, okay, Gemini Builds it's essential, I went through the roster and whatever
Yeah.
number of people we had there, There were those bottom 20% who were excellent technicians and terrible attitudes.
Mm,
And I said to myself, you know what? I haven't had the guts to kind of free them, because I was learning the business and I really had a lot of learning. And I knew that if I was around bad energy or bad attitudes, I might get sick. And my job was to lead us
mm,
through the war. So I made a move on those bottom 20% people. They were great, great workers and horrible attitudes. So what I hire for, what I cheerlead for is attitude. I do it every day. People who bring that like shiny, sparkly energy,
mm.
I'm like, let's go. And because I think that's what you need to succeed more than you need these like it's the same as hiring. If you wait to find that perfect developer that can do everything at
Yeah.
your company, you may never find him. You find somebody with a good attitude that wants to learn, that wants to be on the team. You can do so much with that.
Absolutely. I know I made the mistake for a long time of hiring some really smart, um, I'm trying to avoid like a negative word. Some really smart people who weren't the most awesome culture fits because I thought, well, what we needed was smart people. It's a tough competitive business. You have to be a clear thinker. Get these things done. And then they just blew up every team they were on. And not to say that who we have now is any less smart, but when we prioritized like team fit, um, what we got is people who stay a long time because they really like that we've created a place like you want to be. Like, when we decided to come back into the office, I was a little nervous because I knew it was the right thing to do from a productivity point of view, right? But I was nervous, like, would people not like this? And the vibe we're getting is like, actually, we're excited to see each other again, that kind of thing. And you have a business, you can't make
Yeah.
the stuff from home, but we can, right? That's a luxury,
Yep.
and yet people like. I think there's something. I mean, being in a job, like I don't want to be at home in my apartment for 2 years and not see anybody. It's just not a situation. And so
No.
we created a place where you opt into it, right? And I think probably you did too, where it's like, okay, there's now that you got that 20% out the door, it's like, oh, now we know who we are. This is who we're looking for. That's who's going to
Yep.
come here and stay. Um, that's really great. So how about, think about that, that balance between, I love your, perfection and fast thing. Cause I feel like the growth companies have to be one way, but sometimes our clients who are much bigger, maybe their strategy is more perfect than fast just because of scale. And,
Yep.
and the value is, we can be that nimble. Is that something you think you've experienced? Cause you're working with a big, like Costco and other big brands like that.
I find that, you find companies that value speed. So a fast company means that you don't have to have as much inventory because,
Hmm.
somebody can produce it fast. A fast company can get
Hmm.
you things when your employees miss on stuff, which we all have in our shops all the
Hmm.
time. So even Costco, they forget to order the displays for the t-shirts and it's, back to school. So I think that we find people that we like to do business with
Hmm.
and that are enjoyable. Like I want the people here, I want to like them. I want the customers, I want to
Yeah.
like them. There wasn't always a day that I could be that choosy, when I was much, much younger. But that's a real luxury. And I sort of kind of really, really embrace that because I think it makes work more enjoyable for our team. If our clients are nice, we just don't have to put up with like bad attitudes, not
Yeah.
here internally and not on the outside. That just doesn't fit our culture. And that we just don't stand for.
One of the things that we've been tracking here, around people has been that there are a huge number of boomers retiring in the next, I think, 5 to 8 years. Where it's like there's like 3 million is the number we've seen, in the generally speaking manufacturing space, and that there are only for every five retiring, there's only two coming back in who want to do that kind of work. And I'm curious for you, like, is that something you're watching, or like how are you looking for and finding those great fit people? Because in a way, there's only two, but like really, you're looking for the top, whatever percent of that from an attitude point of view. So like, what are you doing to monitor that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We got our health insurance renewal discussion this week, and they dinged us pretty hard. And we got like a 25% increase, which is a massive number. And they said, well, you have a lot of people over 60. I was like, no, we don't. And I was like, we don't have anybody over 60. Of course, I'm coming in hot on my 59th
Yeah.
birthday, and then my husband. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, we do. Well,
Yeah.
our job out there is kind of a young man's job in that, you're lifting heavy things. It's a little bit physical work. I didn't even think these people were 60 because they're physically working
Hmm.
and they don't look anywhere close to 60.
Yeah.
So, nowadays, Mike, nobody, I don't, not nobody. people don't retire at 62, right? So I don't know, they can go a ways longer, but we are actively going into high schools actually, like
Hmm.
where people teach engineering, and bringing in, I mean, we had 3 or 4 22-year-old, or maybe they're 20,
Yeah.
young guys start that are apprentices to the manager and that. And we're like, "Look, this guy's gonna retire. So
Hmm.
you can be this guy in very short order if you really just absorb and learn and get, things going." So it's we like to keep people. That's our number, I love to keep people. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But if you're going to add or have turnover, we obviously try to find somebody that we can grow their career over the long
Sure.
term.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think first of all, a lot of the work we do in the digital space is, if you're going to have to do more with less, a lot of the answer is going to be some automation and going to be some AI and things like that. For a business like yours, that applies to maybe back office stuff, but you still, again,
Yep.
people still have to put the things together and quality control and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be probably a challenge for that sector, but you again specifically into the future. So I love looking at the kids, get kids coming out of high school. Cause I know for us, we do great with our internship program, um, has produced a lot of our best people because they come
Yeah.
in with that attitude, with a little bit of momentum, a little excitement. They learn what we're doing. They ramp up really fast. Again, as long as you're picking the right people. So that's such an important thing to do. What's your outlook like for, you know, 25, 26 in terms of, what's happening in your market right now?
So we went into this year planning for some big growth, and we've come pretty close to hitting those targets. Even when a couple of our really big clients like really cooled on opening stores, and that's a big area for us because we go in and put the artwork in the walls and then all the
Mhm.
decor into, all these retail centers for medical facilities and whatever it is. So we're pretty happy with the fact that we kind of outpaced that even with
Mhm.
some assumptions that didn't pan out. And we plan for growth every year, Mike. Like we don't
Yeah.
know exactly where we're getting it from when we do those budgets next month, but we plan for growth. We hired some extra
Mhm.
business development people. We're actively using AI to, stand in front of clients. We're on
Yeah.
the right sort of trajectory and things that it can help with. And we're just everybody in this place knows that we have to grow. So we have to say yes, and not no to opportunities. So I'm, you know, I'm just getting into budgeting, but kind of excited about, turning the clock at the end of the year and tackling another year.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you a question here. So I have had a conversation with three different CEOs in the last week about how to message what's in it for me in terms of growth for sort of like the frontline person. What's your take on like, hey, we got to grow every year. Why do I, who I'm putting the acrylic together, how does that make it to my world? How do you position that?
Oh, I think that's a great question. Easy. What I stand up there and say is all of the people who work here want to learn new things, get a bigger opportunity, get a better title, whatever their thing is. It's my job as the leader to get everyone excited about growing enough so that we can hit all the opportunities. Some people just want more pizza parties, literally.
Mhm.
Like, but we can't have pizza every Friday if we're burning it up on mistakes or redos or remakes. So I think it's what's in it for them is that it's our job as the managers to know, what is Mike like, what is Courtney like, what is Larry like, what is really incents them, and then to be able to deliver that. And I'll tell you what, I don't know a way to deliver any of those things without, growing the top and
Yeah.
bottom line.
Well, that's really good because
Do
it's
you do
funny.
you look at it differently?
No, it's I think I always start from, and I think everyone starts from like how they experience it themselves. I always start with, if you're someone who wants more opportunities, you want to get promoted, you want to grow into your next role, whatever. Right now that role is filled. So for us to have that
Right.
opportunity for you, we have to grow to the point we need to open another one of those. But the thing that I've come to terms with over the years has been that that's not for everybody. Like some people like just really like their job, and to your point, they just want more pizza parties. And so it's a mix of, because I think there's some people who are kind of risk averse and change averse, and that's fine.
Yeah.
There's a balance of that, and so you need to mix that because I remember a couple of our best developers ever. have actually explicitly said, like, listen, I don't want to be a manager. I just like doing this. I'm going to be the most expert Jedi ninja who ever came into development. But I don't want to touch clients. I don't want all that kind of stuff. Great. That's just fine. Like, not everyone has to be a manager kind of thing. In fact, you can't, like the way that the organization works. So I think like balancing that message across the different kind of, archetypes, so people have their needs met, that Maslow kind of hierarchy thing. Like, let's address people kind of where that's important. And one of the clients we're talking to, I'm doing a keynote for. It's kind of balancing. Listen, there's some things that we need to do that are growth oriented. And there's some things that are production, and production. You still have to get all the stuff done, but we have to have more for you to do next year for that to work. So it's a balance. I don't know. What do you think about the balance of like those kinds of different personality types?
Yeah, I think that's like the messaging part, right? So there are literally, the people that like the pizza parties, they also really like the hype of planning for the important visits. So
Mhm.
I might not go to them and say, "Well, guess you're going to get more work, and aren't you excited?" I might say, "Next year we're going to be actively having visitors come that are
Mm.
prospects for Gemini, and we're going to need you to make sure this place is sparkling and
Yeah.
that we show well." They will take that like it's their mission.
Yeah.
They love that vacuuming and getting the place spick and span. And oh my gosh, we have important visitors,
Oh, that's cool.
and that's really prideful. So you have to like give the PR story to who sales. Sorry, you're here to produce more. Produce. That's what you
Right.
get.
Right.
But not everybody, you're right, gets jazzed about that. So really finding, it's easy to do when you're a small company, right? Like
Mhm.
I know what people's, kind of love language is.
Sure.
And I really, but it's harder if you're Starbucks or whatever, and that's why I don't want to work there. But
Yeah.
I like being able to know, hey, this person's going to be good for this and get excited. And I'm going to take this person to meet this artist because they're very famous and they'll love that kind of touching
Yeah.
fame. And so those are the things you make it. And that's why hopefully they stay a long time because you really know them.
Yeah, I like that love language idea because let's call it a work love language, and I think because
Yeah, a work
I
love
was
language. Yeah.
I think about it as like more uh, like a disc profile, like where do
Yeah.
where you,
Yeah.
but I think with the love language idea, it's like there are some things that people look for and want and like at work, and making sure that you're hitting the right thing. One person wants a pizza party, one person wants the award. You don't know, just pay attention to what it is that people are looking for. I think is important. Um,
Or like you just said, like when, people come back to work, I think they found that
yeah,
after COVID, nobody was at work. Well, a lot of reason people stay at work is because they have friends at work and
yeah,
people want to come and see their friends. And, I don't come here for my friends, but I like the people I work with. And some people, that is their social outlet. So if they were at home, that was a missing
yeah.
thing for them. So you
Absolutely.
really do have to sort of know what button you're pushing.
Mhm. Well, maybe sort of as a quick change of topic to wrap things up here a little bit. I've actually really enjoyed doing my podcast. You have one, and you wrote a book. So I'm wondering for CEOs listening, I'd love for you to talk about kind of your experience on your podcast and what it was like, and kind of what the outcome has been from writing the book too.
Thanks, Mike. So I think the podcast was something somebody pitched me the idea, but what got me excited about it was I love meeting CEOs and smart people. I just love having conversations and talking to them and finding out that ultimately all the challenges I have are pretty similar to what everyone else experiences. So that was a great avenue to do that. And really I used it as a way to highlight other people's stories. So it was a lot of fun. I think I found out or did hear that if you've done more than 10 podcasts, which is we both have, you're in the top 1% of all podcasters. And there's millions of podcasts. It's a hard job, is what I'm trying to tell you. Scheduling it, planning it, executing, filtering. It's nobody
Mhm.
understands how much work it is. So kudos to you for keeping on. Um, I pivoted my energy last year and I wrote a small book, or maybe we'll call it a bookette, but 100 pages thanking all the prior mentors that I had had in my life that helped me, I feel like, formulate and establish this wonderful career I've had. And I
Mhm.
wanted to really tell some of the stories about little small things that had really made a difference for me. Like as small as I had a sales manager when I was like 22, and he would say like, "Courtney, when do you get gas?" And I was like, "Ray, when I'm out of gas." And he's like, "No, you get gas before work. And because that's 5 minutes and you get gas once a week. And he basically would show me that those 20 minutes a month equal, how many days of unproductivity. So at 22 years old, I was like, aha. And
Sure.
everything I start doing in my life is about how to get the most production
Sure.
because I heard it. So it was really fun to write and to recognize kind of like things that got me here because of habits and people that touched me early on and so forth. So, um, I use it as a way to write checks to charities that
Right.
I value. But I had been taught that it was a good thing to do because A, it kind of gives you some credibility when you go to call on somebody. And B, my lens was that I wanted to use it as a big thank you note.
That's great. That's really cool. Well, thanks for coming on and talking with us and sharing stories today. It was really fun going through that with you, and wish you the best of the rest of 25.
Let's rock it. Yeah,
No.
you and Caxi too. Let's be positive and finish strong.
Thanks for listening to the Digital Transformist. This is Mike LaVista, and if you like that content, subscribe so you can get notified of new content when it comes out.